Glyn Hall, good afternoon, and thank you very much for joining us again. It's been an absolutely fascinating week of Dakar 2025.
It certainly has, yeah. A very good one and a tough one, but really good and interesting. I think it's kept the world on their feet and certainly all the pundits very much awake.
Also interesting, before the race, we spoke about the new cars and the Toyotas. You kind of predicted that the Toyota would be the quick car, and some of the others, the Dacia, might be somewhat underbaked. What's your impression so far?
Yeah, so I did predict it pretty much as it's happened, and although everybody was telling me, oh, you've got to develop and they'll be left behind, I did think that the car we brought to Dakar last year was a huge step in terms of overall performance, and I was certain that it would last this year as well. So and it certainly looked like that. I mean, there's been a Hilux clean sweep of stage wins this week. And a lot of people I spoke to said, oh, no, in the know, of course, saying, no, Dacia have, been testing so much and Ford have been testing so much. But we've got to remember, it's Ford's first proper race with their own car. Last year, they, of course, used Neil's car, so relatively easy in a lot of ways. And Dacia now becomes an Anglo-French attack, so that's always going to be a little bit more difficult, I would imagine. But I did expect the fight to be between Nasser and Loeb, and then Hilux would be right there. So it's exceeded my expectations a little bit, being so far ahead. And I'm looking at a lot of detailed footage, and certainly the Hilux, for me, looks the most composed car there.
Yeah.
And I don't think that Yazid and Henk are pushing, to the limit. I really don't. When I look at it, they're going, no question about it. You don't lead the Dakar 1 and 2 if you're not going after, 6 days of really tough racing. But I still think they've got something in reserve.
From the comment you make about Nasser, he is really, really wanting to win this race, and I think it was yesterday that he went on maximum attack. Yes, he pulled some time, but it's probably a little bit too late.
So yeah, you're right, and I expected him. He knew what he had to do, because next week is a much more complicated week in a way than this week. 4 days with the bikes opening, I think it is 7 stages. So there is going to be some strategy at play. The great news for South Africa really was that Henk opened the road yesterday. Okay, he lost effectively 10 or 12 minutes to Nasser, but he was bringing it into the Raceday in the lead of the Dakar. So, you've got to have a strategy to yourself, and you've got to, you can't push too much yet, because it's his to throw away at the moment. So a lot of pressure inside that car.
And he was racing Yazid, and he opened the gap going into Raceday on Yazid, and then Nasser, whatever, left the wheel in the desert. I mean,
yeah, and don't underestimate. You don't know when he lost that 50 kilograms of wheel. That's measurable in terms of performance over 300 Ks.
So I'm agreeing. It's a lot.
Yeah, that's measurable for sure. We've seen if Christine hadn't have been there, I don't know if they're carrying any spares in Nasser's car. So there's another 50 kilograms or 40 kilograms of options there. So and of course I don't know what Henk's carrying in. I would have imagined that he would be carrying a fairly substantial spares kit, to the tune of between 30-40 kilograms, which I said earlier is measurable. So Nasser was taking some risk, bent the rear suspension, Loeb rolled, broke a lot of parts on the car, if you remember doing that. I don't think it's quite as clear cut as you think for Nasser to go and take 30 minutes back next week easily. For sure he's going to try, because he only wants to win. Seconds of no option to him.
And I mean, that's the kind of guy that you want in a car, to a large degree, six or next. I just want to go back. You mentioned Loeb and the roll, and there's all this discussion about the roll cages and the bending of it and the FIA. And what's your thinking around there's damage on the roll cage? When is it enough for you as a team manager to pull the guys off?
So, 2-3 years ago, I put a huge amount of work into a dossier, and I mean a proper amount of work on research back into the 1950s on Bruin's aircraft structures, on how to repair a tube frame, aircraft, and what's acceptable and what's not. And I presented it to the FIA and we debated it at length. I got 100% support from Sven and 0 support from ProDrive, which I was really disappointed about, because I had lobbied beforehand and I thought, well, maybe we're going to get it, and we didn't get any. And the FIA's stance is, from the safety department, let's take the A bar, that's the door bar as you might know it. That's got to be a one-piece tube. And I put forward a repair, how can I put it, a repair procedure that we believed was very safe. Sven and his engineers 100% supported it. So my saying was, we've spent an awful lot of money going around the world, we've got teams racing there, let's take the responsibility out, or give the FIA chief technical officer some tools at his disposal to be able to allow us to continue. So that means let's be able to repair the roll cages on the race. Obviously, if it's all flattened, you can't do that. But invariably, like Loeb and Carlos, you could drive it there. It's got a dented tube or a bent tube. Cut it out. Slug it if need be, if it's a door bar with a proper over-engineered piece of steel you put inside it, weld it. And we were always the roll cage manufacturer. So in essence, if we can get it done before the next morning, we can sign it off as being safe. And that gives the FIA some tools or a methodology in order to let the cars continue. Anyway, it was thrown out. So now I have the feeling that might well be coming back up for discussion very soon, with a lot more support than I was given. And I spent a lot of work, and that dossier is still there, with every drawing and every procedure and every methodology of how to repair it. I mean, an aircraft, if you get a dent in the tube, you are allowed to patch that tube over in a specific way. In the FIA, if you've got a dent in the tube, you're out. And, the chief technical officer's only following the rules. He can't do anything else. If he does and somebody gets hurt in the car, I mean, before on our local races, we've rolled a car, and we're able to continue and still win. I go to the driver and co-driver and I actually say, with a witness, this car is damaged. I believe it to be safe. I can't guarantee it. Are you prepared to drive it? And of course, they always say yes. Would it help me in a court of law? I was never sure, but we're racers, and I wanted to make sure we had the maximum opportunity, and the drivers did. So,
I guess Dave Richards would be giving you a lot more support for that protocol now.
Well, of course, we don't know if Dave even knew about it. And I built up a fairly good relationship with the senior engineers there. So I'm not going to tell Dave, well, your men didn't support me. Dave's going to be, believe me, Dave was on the phone to the boss of the FIA, the boss of ASO. Excuse me. I need to get a drink. Sorry.
I'm glad I'm not the only one who needs a drink. Luckily, we've got one over here. You're not allowed to, it's not beer, you're not allowed to show the label on it, or are we? It's a Nachi Energy.
Okay.
I'm glad you needed to get one. I also needed one.
Well, I breathed when I said I swallowed. Yeah, so.
I've got some notes here items I wanted to discuss. The other one I wanted to discuss was tires, and at the beginning of the race we spoke about how you've got these new tires, but we had almost the ridiculous situation. To me, one of the saddest sights I've seen in motorsport in my entire life was Janil de Villiers run out of tires and as dejected as possible. Now we know that Janil is, if he says he's looking after the tire, he's looking after the tire properly. Yet,
Yeah.
there he was. How does one avoid that sort of thing? Does one load up a truck completely with 6 brand new tires for each car and take it to the remote service?
Well, I'm not sure, but all the big teams generally have their own T4 or T5 now, and you can get 6 wheels and tires in there. But I'm not sure if Janil's team had one specifically for themselves. I don't know.
Have that water. It really was horrible.
Yes.
How do the tires get? What is the mechanism of a puncture? I mean, we drive down the road here, tar road, we get a nail or a general thing in it. In the cross-country race, how does it happen?
Thanks. Well, so we did quite a lot of extensive testing a while ago in Namibia by the first year with these tires with off-the-shelf plugs. And it was quite amazing how far. I think we did 180 Ks with a huge hole in the sidewall with 6 plugs in it. And it's amazing how good it was, and I believe there's a lot more fancier stuff now as well to be able to fix tires on the go. If it's in the tread, no problem. Plugs work really well, no trouble at all. If it's in the sidewall with a tear, you're in serious trouble.
Yeah.
So you need for 4 cars, ideally you need about 8 tires at the end of a marathon stage. This is not a top team needs options, and like the Dacia had 2 trucks, I see, on the race, so they would have had 8 or 12 tires there, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. It's part of the race. I believe BFG are working on a new tire. Wasn't ready for this year for one reason or another. This time last year, I was deep in discussions with them on the design of it, and I did a lot of analysis during the race on how the punctures were happening with the engineer in Atlanta, literally every second night, and working with him to try and find a solution going forward. Everybody was going to get the benefit, but unfortunately, somebody's got to take the initiative and do it, because Michelin or BFG can't do it on their own. They need evidence, and they've got their guy, one man in the pits, going around to all these cars trying to look for the tires, and half the time they're off the rims and in the back of the truck, gone. So
and also
you've got to do
that initial damage on the tire, you can't really analyze it properly, because a driver will drive it until the thing is
No. Those guys will. The minute that the puncture warning comes on the dash, you got to stop. And these days, you do not continue at all. That's the discipline, and all the top guys will know that. Of course, if for some reason the tire pressure system doesn't have it on the go, you actually don't know for a while. Then you've done a lot more damage.
Okay, thanks. Glyn, this is why I love speaking with you, is that I learn stuff every minute that we talk. It's absolutely fascinating. Can we go back to the torque meter? And
sure.
It's now becoming more and more apparent that it is hugely advantageous to run the torque meter if you've got the right kind of engineer who knows his way around the software.
Well, I would say on the surface of it, you might be right. But I think in the Gazoo team, I don't think Sawood and Varaa and, of course, Guy Bottrell have got a torque meter.
Yeah.
And there, Sir Woods won a stage, and Guy was right up there. I mean, every day it was without his technical problems having in the transmission, he was looking really good for me, and he doesn't have one. So I'm not sure. I would need to analyze it with a clean sheet of paper, get all the proper information. And in these instances, one tends to find people make very fast comments about it, and you've got to really dig in deep and find out what is going on.
Well, that's as clear a hint to me, Cliff, that I shall try to learn a little bit more. So at Varaa, youngest guy to win a stage at Dakar. Quintero, youngest guy to win 2 stages at Dakar. Certainly the youth seem to have some proper speed.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, I was very close to Seth last year, and was just trying to get him to slow down, not speed up. It's he was extremely brave, and I didn't think he had enough meat on him to actually go all day at the speeds that he thought he wanted to go at. But he was close to being fit enough. This year, he looks like he's worked on that.
Yeah.
Slowed down a little bit, and he was unlucky. I don't know why he lost so much time in the first marathon. Otherwise, he'd be right in there.
Yeah.
I don't know that detail, but he's a good lad.
They go 7 more days. There's one short stage with.
One thing before we move off Seth, you must remember Lucas last year. I thought he still could have won Dakar without, there was a damper problem that, we had last year, and I think a wishbone that broke. But I thought that Lucas was still on to win last year. And this year he's not too bad either. There's one stage again, he's lost a bit of time. Otherwise, he'd be right in there.
There's certainly a powerful lineup of drivers in those 6 cars. Really, really strong. It's kind of, let's cover all the bets. We're going to win this thing as long as we've got enough cars that carry on running. So going into the next 7 stages, you've got the 120 odd kilo that's going to have all the tricks in the world from a navigation and dune point of view. You're a team manager. Let's say, just imaginary, what kind of instruction do you give to your driver who might be in 3rd position, 30 minutes off the lead? What do you tell your driver and how to go and hunt down the lead?
Quite a lot. Is the answer.
Glenn. Some hints.
So I can tell you this, from being deep inside it with Nasser, we won 3 Dakars together. It is literally one day at a time, guys. We lost Dakar 2020, by 2 minutes, and Matthew went wrong for 18 minutes. Otherwise we would have been 4 Dakars up. You cannot predict to make a plan for the whole week earlier, at the moment. The only thing you don't want to be doing, I would say, is opening the stages where there's no bikes. If you do have to open the stages with no bikes, you better hope that the fastest guys around are 2nd and 3rd. And honestly, it's no more complicated than that. And if you end up, say, 5th, 8th, 10th, you're going to have to take some risk on that stage, because you can set yourself up to take a huge amount of time, but the next day you're going to lose it. So it's not an easy decision or topic for discussion without being there on the day, seeing who's in what position, seeing which stage is coming next, how good the car and the team is. Okay, let's take the car out of it. Let's say they're all in perfect condition.
Yeah. Okay.
If you're racing against Nasser now and Christina is 30 places back, you know that he's going to have to be carrying some more spares and can't take as much chance as he would have done. So this is complicated. It's not a straightforward, I'll write it down for you, follow this and you're going to win. No chance.
And it's a moving target.
Absolutely, I mean, Jean-Marc Fortin, who I always used to go in the car with, he's a co-driver, WRC, very successful, Dakar, really successful. He knows the racing. He knows. We talked about it all day long, and we would talk literally the whole day. And if you weren't talking, you would think about it. We might be quiet for a couple of hours, and then we'd come up with another strategy. It was quite eerie. We had Uwe Schmidt in the car last year, who was the FIA. What's it called? Lawyer. The guy who steward.
Yeah.
For WRC, and he was for Dakar the year before, and then he stepped out of that, so now he could do that. And he says, "What do you guys think about?" He was astonished, that it'd be quiet for an hour, and then we'd come out and talk about the same thing. And that's what the race is all about. And then we go away and think about it, talk to a few other people, see what the cars were like, and then it might all change that night. Yeah.
And looking at the cars, it's one thing seeing the cars firsthand, but looking at the cars on some of the footage, and there's a lot of footage that's out there, it gives you ideas for developments, both of aerodynamics and suspensions as well, and which cars need it the most.
I would say, we start designing the car for the next year probably just before the Dakar starts, and then I start a list, and every 2 days update the list, sometimes every day, on things that we need to work on. And even when we'd won a stage, I might ask the driver, right, what do we need to go faster? What was wrong? And I'd make notes of that and then edit it every 3 or 4 days to try and shorten the list. And that's how you'd go and chat to the engineers, the drivers, every single day during the race. And by the time we'd finished, within a week after Dakar, we'd have a pretty full hit list of things that we wanted to test. And, within the first 2 months, getting back and get some more feedback, and then you go again. Yeah.
You've got a bit of FOMO, Glyn. 22 years you've been at Dakar. Now you
23, I think. I was thinking it was 23, I think. I've quite enjoyed being here and looking in from the outside and, seeing the guys doing so well. That's nice. That frustration is less. If they were really struggling, look, I'm sad for Janelle and Guy especially, because Guy was really worked hard this year, and I thought he was great. Janelle, because it's his last Dakar, shall we say, and I thought a clean run. He was looking like a solid podium, and if you've seen the carnage around the place this last week, I was sure he was in for a podium for his last Dakar.
That would have been special. Cliff.
Yeah, especially with Dirk there. Yeah.
Glyn, can you give us a prediction on, because we've covered next week, can you give us an overall prediction on what you think will happen tomorrow? Because it's Raceday today, there's changes being made on the cars. What do you think will happen tomorrow with strategies and that, looking at the front runners? Where do you think your money is, or what's going to happen?
So tomorrow is the most terrifying day of Dakar. You haven't had a proper shakedown. You put a load of stuff on the cars. Tomorrow is the most stressful for a team owner, manager, or whatever. It was my worst day, and I used to really push everybody hard to be finished 4 or 5 o'clock, and then go out in the cars for 50, 80 Ks to run a little bit of gravel if we could get the drivers in the car as well. Because, tomorrow is the most dangerous day. I haven't seen, maybe, Colin, can you tell me what's on the stage tomorrow?
Glenn, you caught me out, but I'll give you they've got, it's 824 Ks in total. It's the longest stage, 604 kilos. So it's bang out of Raceday into 604 Ks, and I'll tell you what it is now. 605, I'm sorry.
And Hale can have a lot of short, difficult dunes as well. There are some around there if they choose to use them.
Yeah, that's hills, small dunes, and tracks.
Okay, so here's my prediction. Now, Seth's going to open the road. He's going to have a tough time, I think, because I would imagine. And the next day, what is the next day? Is that a closed, but no bike day, or?
Tuesday is a no bike day. Wednesday is a bike day, and
Hang on.
Thursday is a bike.
So Sunday and Monday have both got bikes on the track.
Yeah.
So tomorrow, I would say the guys like Yazid and with Nasser right at the front, Yazid's going to be looking for 10 minutes tomorrow. And 600 Ks, maybe more. Yeah. Anybody who's around 5th to 10th position is looking for 10 or 15 minutes tomorrow. Yeah. Then the next day, you bleed it off. Then the next day, you're in the right place for no bikes. That's just my quick assumption. You said, yeah, it's 600 Ks. Yeah, well, 600 Ks, you can sort the Dakar out tomorrow, because when you get down into the dunes in the empty quarter, you want to have a cushion on Nasser, and as long as you follow Nasser there and you take a brave pill in the morning, you might be able to follow him. You might be able to follow him. I certainly think looking at the Hilux compared to the Dacia, I would think you could follow him if you, as I say, take a bit of a brave pill, if
one
needed.
Or two.
No, I wouldn't like to take more than one. No.
Glyn, it's been absolutely fascinating talking. I really could carry on picking your brains for the rest of the afternoon. It's totally invigorating, and as I say, I learn stuff every minute that we talk. It's absolutely fascinating. Thank you very much.
It's great. Yeah, I must admit, a lot of people are watching your program. So our other interview, I got quite a lot of people from Australia and around the world saying how good it was. So Central Africa, Australia, yeah, it's good.
It's not us who are good. We've got people like you coming. You guys are the stars. And it's a true privilege, and thank you for making yourselves available. Glyn, go back to the wine and the sunshine of the island and relax, for today is a rest day, because tomorrow it's race day again. Thanks a lot for chatting.
And I don't envy that 600 Ks. Cheers, guys.
Yeah. Cheers. Say hi to Michelle. Bye.
Bye.